Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Is this a beautiful building or what? Is this beautiful? Well, the construction on the exterior is almost complete, so our brilliant design teams are focusing on the interior of the museum now. So in 1 year's time, 1 year, 2016, we're all gonna come right back here for the opening of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. And we are in glorious anticipation of that day. But first, tonight we're gathered to commemorate some of the important milestones on a people's incredible journey to freedom. And to begin, please help me welcome to the podium the Smithsonian's Undersecretary for History, Art, and Culture, Dr. Richard Kieran.
Thank you. Welcome all to this special commemoration and celebration of freedom. On February 22nd, 2012, President Barack Obama, former First Lady Laura Bush, Congressman John Lewis, Governor Sam Brownback, Mayor Vincent Gray, the Smithsonian, and the museum's leadership broke ground right here on this spot for this museum, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Today, as you can see, the building is nearing completion, and in the next 10 months, we'll finish the interior, install the exhibits, and by September 2016, open the doors to welcome the public. Today, we mark a milestone in our progress by commemorating three annual anniversaries. The 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War and the ratification of the Constitution's 13th Amendment ending slavery. And also the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. These are signal events in American history and help define who we are as a freedom-seeking people. Now, you can read about them in a book, and we certainly want people to read books. But the way we as a country publicly commemorate and celebrate our major national milestones and encourage their widespread understanding is evident here on the National Mall in our national monuments, memorials, and museums. Now, sometimes African American history, culture, experience, and perspective has been forgotten or ignored on this National Mall. The slave pens and auction markets of the 19th century, for example. But this mall has also hosted those moments when the national thirst for freedom trumped racism, prejudice, and intolerance. Marian Anderson singing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, for example. Our national museums, too, reflect this mixed history. The Smithsonian Castle was built with sandstone quarried by enslaved workers. The first head of the Smithsonian would not let Frederick Douglass speak at the Smithsonian. Through the late 1940s, curators refused to accept important African American items into the collections, like a Medal of Honor awarded to an African American Civil War hero. And even decades ago, the idea of a museum documenting the African American experience was killed in Congress. Yet now, portraits of accomplished African Americans now grace our National Portrait Gallery. And last night, Aretha Franklin sang there with tremendous grace. And exhibits in the American History Museum, like the Greensboro Woolworths lunch counter, help tell the story of the Civil Rights Movement. And now we have this museum arisen on the mall, certainly to broaden the historical record, but also to ensure that the stories and accomplishments of today and tomorrow will be told, providing insight and inspiring our national conscience into the future. Now, building this museum takes a huge effort. We're grateful to the American people, the leadership of Presidents Bush and Obama, the US Congress, the Museum's Council, lead donors, and literally tens of thousands of contributors. We recognize the support of the District of Columbia and, of course, our staff. We recognize the designer, David Ajay, Max, Freelon, Bond, and the workers who've built this museum. But it's Lonnie Bunch, the director, who's lived this museum every minute of every day over the past decade. And he's poured his mind, spirit, and soul into it. He's hired and led a talented staff, raised the money, developed the program, and acquired over 30,000 artifacts and artworks, including that dress that Marian Anderson wore that Easter Sunday afternoon at the Lincoln Memorial. Beyond the museum, thousands from across the Smithsonian and the regions, engineers, contract officers, curators, and conservators have lent their hand to raise up this museum. And leading that effort is David Skorton, the Secretary of the Smithsonian. Now, David's connection to the museum ideals goes back long and deep and was recently celebrated at his installation ceremony when his friend, jazz great Wynton Marsalis, joyously played another one of those museum's great treasures. Lonnie Bunch and his staff took that trumpet of Louis Armstrong and had Wynton Marsalis play it to show that this culture is very much alive in our nation's capital. Please welcome the Smithsonian Secretary, David Skorton.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everyone, and good evening. And welcome to a proud new chapter, not only for the Smithsonian, but most importantly, a proud new chapter in the history of this country. I'm so honored to be here with you to see the birth of this museum. This shimmering bronze monument to the struggles and sacrifices of so many comes closer to revealing its heart and soul to the American people and to visitors from around the world. This museum will shed light on the stories that belong to the ages. Simple, complex, powerful, poignant stories. Stories of the enslaved, whose shackles could not break their spirit, and of the visionaries who were defined by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Enduring stories of ennobling contributions to history, art, the sciences, and culture. These are the stories of the African American experience, yes, but they also expand the American story, and each one of us benefits. When this museum opens just a few short months from now, Director Lonnie Bunch and his dedicated and very talented staff will breathe life into that story with exhibitions, symposia, programming, and collections, and these collections will be like no other in the world. Tonight, that story will be illuminated on the corona of this beautiful building, larger than life, for all the world to begin to see. Thank you for joining us today to experience the storytelling power of this majestic new museum. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage the Mayor of the District of Columbia, the Honorable Muriel Bowser.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. I am so proud and happy to be here, and I want to thank the Secretary and everybody at the Smithsonian. Director Bunch, congratulations. We're moving yet another step closer to being able to see the rich history alive and well in this building in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. I want to thank all the people of Washington, D.C. who have supported and worked, had businesses that made this building behind us possible. And I'm so looking forward to it's opening its doors so that the children and visitors that come to our city every single day will be able to know about the history and struggle of the African American people. Now, I know I'm biased. I get to represent 660,000 people who call DC home, but I can think of no more perfect place for this museum. For more than 2 centuries, Washington has played a pivotal role in the story of African American people, serving as a national stage to our struggle and to our progress. But less told is the history beyond this green wall and of these federal buildings. Washington has deep and rich African American roots. Tonight, we stand in the shadow of buildings largely constructed by slaves who labored and lived right here in the district. In fact, Washington's slaves were among the first in the nation to be freed. And because our laws did not require the newly freed to leave the city, many stayed and our population swelled, raising their families in neighborhoods, real neighborhoods all across Washington. They became clerks and teachers and bus drivers and doctors and academics. They built the city we now call home. And by the mid-20th century, DC was the first predominantly black city in the United States. Some of our most significant leaders in the civil rights movement, from Marion Barry to Carter G. Woodson, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Eleanor Holmes Norton, made their marks here. And today, that torch continues to be carried by leaders who want to commit to making sure that our nation provides every opportunity to every American willing to work hard for it. Our city is a political town, but we're far more than the Congress and the White House. We are a city of music and culture and great diversity. Many of you will remember when U Street was known as Black Broadway. I don't, but I am grateful I don't. That history will be preserved here. This is a city where Duke Ellington and Marvin Gaye and Pearl Bailey all got their starts, where the Howard Theater was part of the Chitterling Circuit, and where people came to really celebrate the history of African Americans. We put Washington on the map of African American higher education as well. And we continue to be very proud to be the home of Howard University. Like communities across the country, African Americans in DC faced our share of segregation and discrimination throughout the decades. And much like other communities, we persevered. We're building a strong middle class, and we contribute to the economic growth, vibrancy, and political life of our nation's capital. Today, Washington's African American story is our nation's story. We have experienced tremendous but uneven progress. There are wide gaps in economic conditions, in education, and in health. And as mayor, I'm committed to closing those gaps so that all of our residents, regardless of background, can reach their full potential. Now, my family has been in this town for 5 generations, and as I like to say, we're not going anywhere. We have been witness, we have participated in the growth of this city, and we're very proud of it. When the doors open to this wonderful museum, I can't wait to bring generations of Washingtonians to celebrate that history, to pay respect to generations that paved the way and built our city, to remember our struggle and our progress, and to recognize that our story is not yet complete. So Director Bunch, on behalf of all of us in Washington, D.C., our great neighborhoods, and dare I speak for future Washingtonians and the visitors that will come to their National Mall to celebrate the great American history, that they'll do so right here.
Please welcome the intrepid founding director of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, Lonnie Bunch.
Oh, please, thank you. Thank you. I'm just some guy from Jersey, so I'm not sure what intrepid means. But I want to welcome you so much because I want to welcome you to the very first event at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Let me say it one more time. The very first event. Okay. Yeah. It's been a long wait, and I have to tell you, 10 years ago, we began this journey with a staff of 2. We had no idea where the building would be. We had no collections, and we had no money. 10 years ago, all we had was a dream. But tonight, we celebrate the realization of that dream. Now, we are not at the promised land yet, but we're close. We're very close. And tonight, we commemorate the importance, the power, and the meaning of freedom, a term that was never abstract to African Americans, a term that was often made real only by those to whom freedom was denied. The importance of freedom and the need to struggle to help America live up to its stated ideals is captured in a song by my dear friend, Bernice Johnson Reagan. Now, I'm not going to sing, so don't worry. But she wrote, "We who believe in freedom will not rest. We who believe in freedom will not rest until it comes." So tonight, we honor 3 moments where freedom came, not as a gift, but as a result of sacrifice and struggle. We remember the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, a war that was a watershed that ushered in a new world of possibility. And we remember the ratification of the 13th Amendment, an amendment consisting of only a few words, yet those words marked the culmination of centuries-old struggle by free and enslaved people, by black and white, to end what historians call America's original sin, the sin of slavery. And we acknowledge very proudly the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, an act that extended the vote to thousands unjustly denied that vital tool of democracy and freedom. But we're also here tonight to celebrate the completion of so much of the construction of this building. I am so proud that this is the first green museum on the mall. And its distinctive corona, yeah, I'm really pleased with that. And its distinctive corona that you see behind me is comprised of a filigree that was inspired by the enslaved craftspeople who created all that wonderful ironwork in Charleston and in New Orleans. In a way, this building has a simple message. This building is a homage to the fact that so much of our history is hidden in plain sight. And we want to celebrate so much of that history. And candidly, we're here tonight because of the support and generosity of so many of you. Obviously, the council, people who have been with us for more than a decade, who have given their time and support to make this work. And I want to thank all the donors that have given millions of dollars, and the donors that have just reached in their pocket and give us a little bit of change, because we are here because all of you care. And I especially want to acknowledge our largest donor, the Congress of the United States. Been very supportive of what we do. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Smithsonian Board of Regents, Secretary Skorton, Richard Curran, and quite candidly, the Smithsonian family who have rallied around this. But I must admit, I hold a special affection for the staff of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Thank you. Their grace, their commitment, their ability to work and put themselves second is a key reason why we're here tonight. And I want to thank all of my staff, and I want to thank those who worked so hard to make tonight happen, especially Kinshasa Conwill, Tasha Coleman, Fleur Pesor, Ricardo Khan, and Derek Ross. They're so crucial to this.
And as we look at this building, I can't help but thank and marvel at the architectural creativity of Freeland R.J. Bond and the Smith Group, the architects that made this vision real. And I have to be honest, I have to always acknowledge John Lewis, who fought so hard to make this country right and to make this museum real. So thank you, Congressman. And my family thanks you because I needed the job, so I appreciate that. We are at this moment because we're standing on the shoulders of those who paved the way. Tonight, we are so fortunate to have in attendance some of the pioneers of the African American museum field. Because at a time like this, I think of John Kennard, who really fought battles at the Smithsonian so I wouldn't have to, who made the Smithsonian so much better. And I think of people like Margaret Burroughs and Charles Wright and Joan Maynard, and people who meant so much to me. And the fact that we've lost so many. Recently, we've lost Rowena Stewart, and just this weekend, we lost Paul Stewart, some of the great leaders in this field. I think I can say candidly that without those who built those museums, there would be no National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I know that some of my colleagues from the African American Museum field are here, so if you could rise and let us recognize you. Those who are with the African American Museum field, thank you all. So we are at this moment because of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, because of Ida B. Wells and W.E.B. Du Bois. We are here because of Emmett Till and maybe Till Mobley. We're at this moment because of Billie Holiday and Augusta Savage and Langston Hughes. And we're here because of the courage and the sacrifice of a James Chaney, of an Andrew Goodman, and a Michael Swarner. And we're here because of the belief and vision of Martin Luther King and an Ella Baker. But we're also at this moment because there were amazing historians who paved the way. We're here because of Letitia Brown, who taught and helped us understand the history of Black DC, and Benjamin Quarles, and of course, John Hope Franklin. These are the people that helped shape us. But we're also here because there are so many people whose names didn't make the history books. We're here because of the enslaved who believed in a better day when they shouldn't have believed. We're here because of families that left the South for the South Side of Chicago to demand freedom and fairness. We're here because of students who left Brandeis University to go south to help with voter registration. And we're here, quite candidly, because of generations of Black teachers who refused, despite outmoded textbooks and segregated schools, to let their students accept society's notions of their inferiority. Ultimately, tonight, we celebrate the power of memory. After all, there is nothing more powerful than a people, than a nation steeped in its history. And there are few things as noble as honoring all of our ancestors by remembering. So tonight, let us remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. As you know, we're here tonight to commemorate and celebrate freedom. And thinking about all that was shed on that journey, we think about many people who risked it all for us. So it's humbling and beautiful to have the honor to bring up to the podium a person who lived and fought the journey through the 60s and helped write that history. Ladies and gentlemen, our congressional delegate to the United States Congress from the District of Columbia, the Honorable Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Thank you so much for that gracious introduction. Before I say my few minutes of remarks, I must say, Lonnie Bunch, that when it comes to building an institution, it is seldom that we have the whole package in one person. In Lonnie Bunch, we had the vision from the inside. In Lonnie Bunch, we had the professionalism to build this museum from the outside. Lonnie Bunch, you have made history by being the entire package that has built this institution. Now, Lonnie told me for years that he wanted DC residents to be the first Americans to come to the site of this new National Museum of African American History and Culture. Ever the visionary, Lonnie surely had in mind more than the location of the museum in our city. Lonnie understands that the district itself is a crucible of African American history. The District of Columbia is one of the nation's oldest cities, created deliberately by the framers as a southern city where slaves could be bought and sold. My great-grandfather, Richard Holmes, was a runaway slave from a Virginia plantation. The framers did not foresee that African American slaves would make history here. When Congress passed legislation to free District of Columbia slaves almost a year before the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves throughout the nation. And in 2003, when we authorized the National American History and Culture Act, and John and I, as co-sponsors, will tell you, I think it took us 10 years to get that bill through the Congress. Yet, then, as we looked ahead, we certainly did not foresee that the museum would actually open during the 154-year commemoration of the Civil War years. We just didn't know when to envision that there would be a real, honest-to-goodness museum here. Yet here we are, with a museum about to open, as if on historical cue, exactly on the 150th anniversary of the ratification of the 13th Amendment. This path-breaking amendment, the most important since the Constitution was ratified, began 5 years of unique constitutional history that also produced the 14th and 15th Amendment. Apart from all that history, we are in a year packed with historic symbolism of our own, back from this summer's commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Lonnie, we want to come here when Congress reenacts the Voting Rights Act to make some more history. This museum represents not only a monumental achievement on time to make history of its own, 150 years after the passage of the 13th Amendment, the museum gives life to the dream denied when African American Civil War veterans were unable to march in the parade commemorating the end of the Civil War. As a museum of African American history and culture, this museum is destined to celebrate history in the process of being made. not yet recorded as a historical fact, but as inevitable as the 13th Amendment is our pending bill to make the District of Columbia the 51st state. On that historic day, Lonnie, we want to come here to celebrate the day when the District of Columbia will no longer be the first to be liberated, the last to be free. Thank you and congratulations.
On these historic grounds, freedom is what we celebrate this evening. It's what brought us here together tonight, yes? But knowing that there could never have been this freedom we enjoy today without those who came before, and because no mountaintop can ever be appreciated truly without recalling the road endured to get here, 2015 is a very special anniversary year when we choose to recognize three important markers along that road to freedom. So from words of Frederick Douglass, writer Robert Hayden, abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison, from a letter from a formerly enslaved man searching for his family after the war, to voting rights activist Ella Baker and poet Margaret Walker, to an original musical composition by Darren Atwater and the Soulful Symphony, we commemorate the end of the Civil War in 1865, the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865, which officially set the enslaved free, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which ensured for all our right to vote. Please welcome our readers, LaFleur Pazor, Joan Mulholland, Rex Ellis, and Cameron Grace Gamble. For Margaret Walker's For My People. For my people everywhere singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power.
When the dark and vengeful spirit of slavery, always ambitious, preferring to rule in hell than to serve in heaven, fired the Southern heart and stirred all the malign elements of discord.
By Frederick Douglass, in reflection on the American Civil War.
And the armies of a gigantic rebellion came forth with broad blades and bloody hands, unknown braves who flung themselves into the yawning chasm where cannon roared and bullets whistled, and where they fought and fell.
For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years and the now years and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding.
Enslaved for the liberty of but one human being, and the liberties of the world are put in peril.
Abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison.
I am aware that many object to the severity of my language, but is there not cause for severity? I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. On this subject, I do not wish to think or speak or write with moderation. No, no, I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard.
The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, I quote, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." December 18th, 1865.
Thank you.
For the cramped, bewildered years, we went to school to learn to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when.
To the Freedmen's Bureau. My name is Hawkins Wilson. It has been 24 years since I was sold at auction and separated from my family. I have no other one to apply to but you, and am persuaded that you will help one who stands in need of your services as I do.
In memory of the bitter hours, we discovered we were black and poor and small and different, and nobody cared, and nobody wondered, and nobody understood.
Dear Sister Jane, this is your little brother Hawkins, trying to find out where you are and where my poor old mother is. I have had a rugged road to travel since we were parted from each other. 24 years. But I am writing to you tonight with my Bible in my hand, praying Almighty God to bless you and preserve you and me to meet again.
When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, diastole, systole, reflex action, when it is finally won, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians, this man, this Douglas, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, none alien. This man, superb in love and logic, this man shall be remembered. Oh, not with statues, Redwick, not with the legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives. With the lives grown out of his life. The lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing.
Sonnet by Robert Hayden on the life of Frederick Douglass.
But 100 years later,
For my people, thronging 47th Street in Chicago and Lenox Avenue in New York and Rampart Street in Orleans.
we who believe in freedom cannot rest.
For my playmates in the clay and the sand and dust of Alabama.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Civil rights activist Ella Baker.
Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these
For
things.
my people, my people.
To be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success.
For my people.
That this act shall be known as the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
No voting qualification or prerequisite to voting shall be imposed or implied
to deny or abridge
the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color.
Thank you.
For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that could hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves, and their countless generations.
Let a new earth rise.
Let another world be born.
Let a bloody peace be written in the sky.
Let a second generation full of courage issue forth.
Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood.
Let the martial songs be written.
Let the dirges disappear.
Let a race of men now rise and take control.
I'm a son of America. America where people dare to dream. Willing to fight for America. America, land of the free. Arise from the ashes, America. America, land that I love. Pray that God bless America and keep America safe from above. Yes, America. Yeah. America. 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 Purple mountain, shining seas, America. America, that's you and me. Red, white, and blue, America. America, Lady Liberty. That's right, America. She's yours. And she's my America. Our America. Oh, see, I'm proud to be called an American. Oh, America, we will achieve. Why? Because all things are possible. America, America, I do believe. And if you believe, sing along, you sing America. My country, Tennessee, sweet land of liberty. Oh, from the Dixie to the great town of Washington and New York City. Oh, it's united we stand. America, America, land of the free, of the free. Sing Yes, America! I am proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be here this evening with these incredible singers and incredible orchestra. Can you give them another hand? And we're just here to remind you that together we stand stand. United we stand. And if you keep on standing, this is what's going to happen. I might get a little happy. Tell me what do you do when you've done all you can? Seems like it's never enough. And what do you say when your friends turn away and you're alone? So all alone. Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all? Seems like you can't make it through. Well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand, watch the Lord see you through. And after you've done all you can, you just stand. Oh, my, my. Oh, tell me. The guilt of your past. Tell me, how do you deal with the shame? Oh, tell me, how can you smile when your heart has been broken and filled with pain? Oh, filled with pain. Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all and it seems like you can't make it through? Well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand and watch the Lord see you through. After you've done all you can, tell him you just stand. Oh, and be sure. Oh, after you've done all that you can do. Oh, after you've done all you can. Oh, after you've done all you can, you just stand. Oh, forever you just stand.
BB Winans, ladies and gentlemen, BB Winans.
When we open the building next year, this museum belongs to the world. But tonight, it belongs to Washington, D.C. So thank you all for coming. Good night.